Well, thank you very much. Welcome to you all for being here. We've just concluded a most successful visit to China, which had two parts. The first was a state visit, where we were hosted by President Xi Jinping, and the second was attending the Focac summit. The state visit was my second state visit to China. And of course, we had a number of objectives that we wanted to achieve in terms of the outcomes. For us, the first one is to enhance the relationship between China and South Africa, particularly in relation to the strategic partnership we have. We were able together to upgrade our relationship from being what we call a comprehensive strategic partnership to an all-round cooperative strategic partnership in the new era. And the new era meaning in the new period that we're all operating in, of the global situation, and indeed of the developments that we want to foster for our two countries. We were also able to share perspectives with President Xi Jinping on the 7th administration that we were just elected into, and briefed him on the setting up of the Government of National Unity and how it is structured, and also in the course of our discussions waylay concerns that they may have had about South Africa's foreign policy towards China. We assured him that South Africa will continue to adhere to the policy that we have had for over 30 years of recognizing a one China policy. And we assured him that the coming in of the other 9 parties in a government of national unity would not dilute or erase our policy positions. And in fact, last night I had the opportunity to inform him that even one of the leaders of the parties that we are now joined in with in the Government of National Unity, who initially was not so well disposed to a one China policy, having visited China for the very first time, and for the very first time as one of my ministers, publicly said that he now subscribes and embraces a one China policy. And President Xi Jinping was rather pleased with that and said, this confirms the good decisions that we took to take South Africa into a new era, an era of cooperative governance, working together with other political parties, and where we would jointly advance the interests of South Africa. So we discussed those political developments in our country, and he too was satisfied that we are on the right path of forging unity in South Africa, of promoting social cohesion, and of getting all parties to work for the development of our country. Our other objective in terms of outcomes was to work on our economic challenges. We briefed him about the priorities of the Government of National Unity, that we want, as a united government now, to focus on economic development, particularly to tackle the challenge of unemployment, and to have an all-inclusive growth economic trajectory. I also briefed him on our other priorities, such as ensuring that we build more capacity in the state, and that we have local government that are going to be much more effective and efficient to serve the interests of South Africans and also to improve skills. So all those sub-objectives and outcomes we were able to achieve in terms of our interaction with President Xi Jinping. We also wanted to achieve the objective of increasing trade and improving trade between South Africa and China. We were able to sign up to 8 agreements, many of which have to do with increased and improved trade between our two countries. And that has led to the opening up of the Chinese market for South African products, particularly with regard to beef. The importation of beef into the Chinese market kept fluctuating as a number of parts in our country were affected by various livestock diseases such as foot and mouth diseases. So whenever such an occurrence would happen, they would ban the whole country. And we were now able to reach agreement that if there is outbreak of foot and mouth disease, it should just be restricted to one area and the country should not be banned. That for us is a great achievement in that it's going to lead to the increase of our agricultural products coming into China, and we should see increased production in South Africa. The other aspect, of course, is for manufactured goods and products to have an easier entry into China. And we were able, through the agreements that we signed, that China would enable more and more manufactured goods from South Africa to be brought in. So that for us is an important development. The other outcome, of course, we wanted was to have cooperation on the technology side. China has achieved enormous progress on technological development, and we were able to reach agreement on science and technology in terms of, and innovation in terms of cooperation, that we will be able to cooperate with China in relation to innovation research, and we were able to have really good and thoroughgoing discussions. We were able to also reach agreement on aspects of our energy security. South Africa has been going through a huge challenge of our energy, and China's assistance in this regard is going to stand us in good stead. And so therefore, our other objective was achieved. And of course, wanted enhanced cooperation on the international issues that we deal with in relation to ensuring that our cooperation in BRICS is consolidated and solidified, and in other multilateral organizations such as the UN and the financial institutions, and agree that yes, there needs to be reforms that will affect those. So at the state level side, we've achieved a great deal, and our visit has really been hugely successful. So I'm very pleased that our state visit to China has really been so impactful, and we will see a lot of progress in our country in developing our relationship with China. Remembering that China is the second largest economy in the world, and for us as South Africa, it's important to promote our relations. China right now is our biggest trading partner, and we want, through the agreement that we have reached, the all-round cooperative strategic partnership in the new era, to take it to a higher level. We were also able to participate in Focac, where we were able, as participants from Africa to join other countries to deepen, broaden, and enhance our relationships with China, and where we were able to interact with President Xi Jinping, both at a continental level as well as at a bilateral level as countries, and also had the opportunity to hear some of the proposals and suggestions that China has in enhancing our relationships. And he outlined 10 strategic actions that China would like to cooperate with Africa on. And they range from economic relations, trade, including health and security, and also how we deal with each other at multilateral institutions level. So that many of us from the African continent we found most meaningful. And it just shows that the partnership that we have with China is a partnership that is based on mutual benefit, where we want all of us to benefit and to succeed. And it's not a one-way partnership. It's a partnership that is also based on upgrading our own relations to a point where we attract investments from China, and at the same time we improve trade. We have also had the occasion at the South African delegation to meet businesses from China. I, together with my ministers, went to Shenzhen, where we met a number of companies in Shenzhen, where we were able to see the technological progress that a number of companies that originate from China have reached, some of which already operate in South Africa. And we showcased to them the opportunities that we have in South Africa for investments. And we also explained to them the way we are also opening up the South African market in terms of the reforms that we are engendering from our energy sector right through to things like visa regime, which has been a bit restrictive in that many Chinese business people and tourists have had to wait for too long to get visas to come to South Africa. So we addressed that and told them that we are going to also enhance the reforms in that regard. And we found that many of them who have invested want to increase their investments, and a number of the others who have not yet invested would like to look at opportunities where they can invest in. So that engagement was also most useful, and I do believe that in time to come it will be beneficial. We also invited them to the South Africa Investment Conference, where we want potential investors to come to South Africa. We also lastly had an occasion to interact with South African businesses that are invested here in China and that also want to invest in China. We had a huge delegation of South African businesses. I would guess the biggest that I have had to deal with on a foreign visit. And they also spoke out in great support for the political relations that they see as being good between South Africa and China, because that forms a very good foundation for them to be able to conduct their own businesses. And they spoke about how we can continue supporting them from increasing capacity at our embassy level, so that when they are operating in the second largest economy in the world, they should know that the government supports them and enhances their businesses. So all in all, this has been a most successful visit to China, and we're truly grateful for the manner in which China conducts its relations not only with South Africa, but with the rest of the continent, with recognition, with respect, and with due regard to one another. And that, in our view, is what we call a really good relationship between states. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll now open the floor to questions. We'll kick off with Sophie.
Mr. President, President Xi Jinping made an announcement of resources, particularly on this new...
Can somebody switch off the air conditioner? It's beginning to affect me. I'm not a good friend of air conditioners.
So I'm saying, Mr. President, President Xi Jinping has announced a massive injection in terms of resources for the continent. It was $10 billion US.
Yeah.
When we look today, it's $51 billion US in 3 years. But the question that comes to mind is this not a debt trap for poorer countries on the continent, as we saw what transpired in other countries that borrowed money from China, building infrastructure? How are you going to navigate that challenge as you characterize the relationship being a win-win? How do you avoid sinking our resources?
Well, the operative word that President Xi Jinping used is that these will be investments where China will be investing in a period of, say, 3 years or so. And I guess they will be investing through their state-owned enterprises. And investments are processes that are based on agreements that every country on a bilateral basis will reach with the investing company or the investing country. And no doubt those entities that will be investing obviously wanted to see a return, firstly of the capital they've put in, and indeed a profit. And so every country will seek to structure its investment relationship with each of the countries or entities in a way that is beneficial to them. Now, I should immediately add that I don't necessarily buy in the notion that when China, say, invests, it is with an intention of, in the end, ensuring that those countries end up in a debt trap or in a debt crisis. During COVID, I had the opportunity to talk to President Xi Jinping about the debts that many African countries were carrying at the time when we were advocating for debt cancellation, debt forgiveness, and a standstill on debt repayments. I was able to get President Xi to understand exactly where African countries stood, and that resulted in China agreeing that with a selected number of countries, they will cancel the debt, and with others, they would obviously have a debt still, payment still agreement. So in the end, we would see China as a partner that seeks to foster the development of our continent. And when they have counted and outlined the various investments, we find that they have done so in many, many countries on the continent. And obviously, they do so with a view of enhancing the development of our continent. And countries must themselves ensure that when they do attract those investments, they attract those investments to develop their own countries and at the same time to continue having a mutually beneficial relationship with China. So I am very positively disposed to the amount of money that President Xi announced today. I think is going to be a great boon to the African continent. And each country must then structure its own investments with various entities in China in a way that benefits them.
Go on, CGTN.
Ramaphosa, welcome to Beijing, China. There has been so much discussions and debate about what kind of a country of power China has been to Africa, to South Africa, ranging from neo-colonialism to a benign and benevolent power, moving away from conditionalities and preaching of previous powers, to becoming a country that respects equality and approaching Africa as a true equal. So, in your eyes, how do you see China as an influence, as a partner to Africa? And very quickly, touch upon the visa agreement. Can Chinese citizens with a personal passport expect and anticipate to travel to your beautiful country, which have been with a visa-free program maybe someday soon?
Well, our experience is that China seeks to promote a mutually beneficial relationship with countries that it interacts with or engages with on the continent. And today, President Xi Jinping demonstrated that, where he said that China is now going to upgrade the relationship that it has with a number of countries to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Now, that has a lot of meaning politically, and I would guess you can extrapolate from that economic dealings as well. So I don't subscribe and believe that it's a relationship that is oppressive, that is also neo-colonial. It should be seen as a mutually beneficial relationship that is based on recognition, respect, and also of advancing each country's own development. China is much more focused on the development of countries on our continent. And we must remember that China has never been a colonial power, and particularly on the African continent. From time immemorial, when Zheng He traveled to Africa, it was 1434 or so, to advance relations with the African continent. And I told President Xi Jinping last night that I see the China that he's leading moving in the same direction as Emperor Judi, who opened up China at the time and wanted to have a mutually beneficial relationship with the world and indeed with our own continent. So it's a relationship that is based on all the good intentions, and we respect that and we accept that. And that is why, as I spoke yesterday, we are, as African countries, committed to enhancing our relationship with China, because we can see genuineness, we can see respect, and we can see their intention to have a mutually beneficial relationship. As regards the visa challenges that we have had, we are going to reform our visa regime. We've identified the visa regime as one of the reforms that we have embarked upon. And China is an important tourist market for us as South Africa, and we'd like to see more and more Chinese people coming to China, and that fits in very well with the people-to-people relationships that we want to have. So yes, we are going to make sure that Chinese people with their own passports can be able to visit South Africa, and the business people from China also raised their own challenges. So it is an important reform area for us as a government, and we did say we are going to address this and ensure that we ease the visa restrictions or requirements that exist at the moment. So you can come much more easily to South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. President. The fact that you've chosen to come here in China for the first state visit in the 7th administration is an important signal. You thanked President Xi Jinping 4 times in your brief speech today. What do you say to those back home who believe that China may not be and should not be as important? And yesterday as well, at the Presidential Business Forum, you took a strong line which was well received around the issue of crime and concerns that Chinese investors have around the high levels of crime. You use strong words about this administration taking that line. So I'm asking this next question based on that. At the cabinet meeting, the acting president, Marupini Ramaphosa, said only the president can answer the question of Tembi Simelane and what should happen in that front. So that is my 2-part question, sir.
Okay. Let's start with the issue of the Minister of Justice. That is a matter that we are dealing with, and I would say that as president, I do need the space and the time to be able to deal with this matter. And certainly, the matter is being dealt with, as I indicated some few days ago. So it's not a matter that's going to be swept under the carpet. It's being dealt with. So be rest assured, the matter is being addressed. In relation to those naysayers, those who are still doubtful, like the biblical Thomas, I would say that this being the very first state visit in the era of the 7th administration and in the era of the government of national unity is a very important and clear signal of how we view the People's Republic of China, and also the intention of the government of national unity to have a foreign policy direction and trajectory that supports our economic growth. Now, China, as I said earlier, is our biggest and largest trading partner, and we are attracting more and more Chinese companies as investors in South Africa. And we're fortunate to have a Chinese government that is committed to foster our development. President Xi Jinping is at pains when he talks to me about not having enough manufactured goods from South Africa. And he says, President Ramaphosa, we want to see more goods in China from South Africa. And to this end, he has even opened up voluntarily the Chinese market for African countries to come and exploit this Chinese market. And certainly, as the most industrialized country on the African continent, so South Africa stands to benefit immensely from this relationship. And of course, we deal with many other countries in the world, but this is an important market for us as South Africans. And businesses that are already invested in South Africa from China, for instance, one of them is already manufacturing goods from start to finish and exporting them to countries like Europe. Now, that is a great boon for us. We cannot downplay that. It's an important indication that this is a country that is prepared to interact and deal with us at a very serious economic level and political level.
Shishijia.
Mr. President, hello, good evening. So this marks the 14th anniversary of the comprehensive strategic partnership between China and South Africa. And South Africa is the first African country to join the Belt and Road Initiative. So, President, how would you evaluate the achievement of cooperation in the past 14 years? And especially under the framework of BRI, and as we all know, we have elevated our relation to the all-round strategic cooperative partnership. So, what new highlights will you bring to our bilateral cooperation? Thank you.
Well, our relationship with China has been enhanced over the many years. It's not only 14 years, it's 30 years, really. And we've had a relation for about 24 years from a diplomatic point of view. So for us, this is an important market, and we have seen increased trade between our two countries. At the moment, the trade is imbalanced. It's more in favor of China rather than in our favor. And it is this that we're focusing attention on to correct that imbalance. And that is why we welcome the opening up of the Chinese market for more and more finished goods from South Africa. I mean, the importation from South Africa into China is much more like raw materials, like our minerals and our unprocessed agricultural products. And we want to upgrade that economic activity to a higher level so that we are able to bring in more finished mineral goods or products or commodities into China and more finished agricultural products. So we want to see that rising on an ongoing basis. But the trade has been rising over the years. It's been getting higher and higher and better and better. So the quality of the trade is bound to increase in the coming years, particularly based on the agreements that we have reached between the two countries.
Oliver?
You were talking about rebalancing trade between China and South Africa. Have you obtained any concrete commitments from the Chinese to bring more manufacturing and other job-creating investments to South Africa? And as China failed in its Dakar 2021 pledge to bring $300 billion of African goods to China, are you confident it will fulfill its promises this week?
Yes, I am confident that we will see an uptick of the activity of balancing the trade. In our case, as South Africa, we anticipate seeing more and more economic activity around a number of sectors. For instance, the electric vehicles is, in our view, a sector that is beckoning. The world is moving more and more towards green energy, and electric vehicles are going to be the future. And we believe that as a well-developed industrial country when it comes to the automotive sector, we will be able to attract manufacturers that are well steeped in electric vehicles. We had good exchanges with BYD, which has shown a great interest to come and invest in South Africa, and indeed other sectors as well. On renewable energy, we've already seen a number of Chinese companies having an interest, and some of them have already started investing in the renewable space. In technology, some of the companies that are leading in technology are Chinese companies in our country, Huawei and ZTE. So there's a great deal of interest, and I will be seeing that 300 billion commitment will be achieved over time. Of course, it'll take time to achieve that because of a number of constraints that our continent still has, but we are going to be going up the ladder as time goes on. So the economic ladder, we will be climbing step by step and layer by layer. We will get there.
Zosong, People Daily.
President, I come from People's Daily, Africa, General Bureau, located in Johannesburg. Very nice to see you again.
Good to see you. I remember you. Yes.
Thank you so much. My question also related to the relationship between our two countries. South Africa is the most visited African country by President Xi, and you are also one of the most frequent African leader to meet with President Xi. So do you think now is the best historical period of South Africa and China? And what is driving our two countries come closer? Thank you.
Well, the relationship between South Africa and China has really reached a point where it needed to be enhanced to go to a higher level. And that is why we agreed that it should now be characterized as an all-round, cooperative, comprehensive strategic partnership that is going to operate on an all-round basis without restricting it to certain areas only. And we've had the joy of having a good cooperation with China in a number of areas, both bilateral country to country and also descending to economies, people to people, cultural, and also education and skills development. And we've also had a very good international relations type of cooperation. BRICS is one of the high points that solidifies our relationship with China, and we cooperate very well at the United Nations level and now through Focac. So our relationship with China is of good quality. It is a very strategic relationship. And you are absolutely right. President Xi Jinping has visited South Africa more than any other country on the African continent. And we value that and we welcome that because our continuous interactions just enhances the relations between the two countries. And we will now be proceeding to a number of other forums in the world, and we will meet there, and we will also have discussions and even reach further agreements as we move on. So it's a very special, all-round, comprehensive, cooperative relationship. So we are very pleased about that relationship.
Reuters?
You even put your computer down.
You don't mess around, right?
I know.
Mr. President, you mentioned just now that you were interested in receiving more investment from China in electric vehicles.
Yes, sir.
An area where the US and European Union have accused Beijing of directing state subsidies and having overcapacity in. Are the West lobbying South Africa not to accept more Chinese investment in this sector and instead to take more investment from their own automakers? Thank you.
No, South Africa is not being lobbied by anyone not to accept investments from China. South Africa is a sovereign country, and we want to remain sovereign both politically and economically, and when it comes to foreign policy as well. And we do this with the recognition or the understanding that, like any other country, we want to respect countries that we deal with, and we would like those countries not to impose their will on South Africa, like we would not want to impose our will on them. So when we deal with countries, we deal with them on a bilateral basis, with the understanding that they will seek to foster our own development. Now, we are new kids on the block when it comes to electric vehicles. And we are desirous of fostering our economic development. And our view is that our journey to developing economy should not be held back by anxieties and fears that other countries should have about other countries that we have relationships with. Like we are not driven by the concerns that, for instance, other countries may have with China. So our respect for sovereignty, both economically and politically, is really meaningful, and it is the foundation on which our foreign policy is really based, and it is based on foster the progress of one country as it seeks to foster your own progress, and do not seek to hold another country's progress and development back. So that's who we are. And remembering that South Africa relates to all countries in the world. We don't see ourselves as having enemies. We are non-aligned as a country, and we have set our path on fostering the development of various countries and peace, and basing, obviously, our foreign policy on mutual respect, respect for the values that we subscribe to, and human rights as well.
I'll take two last questions. Business Day, and the lady in front here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to chat to us, Mr. President. Michelle, to make the Business Day. So my question is just with relation to this all-round strategic partnership in the new era. How is the business community in South Africa to understand the implications of that? What will it mean for them in layman's terms?
We had occasion to meet with our business community yesterday afternoon. And to tell you the truth, they are really overjoyed with what they see as a very close relationship between China and South Africa. A number of them are invested here, and they have seen their investments growing by leaps and bounds, and they have wanted to gauge and see whether the relationship between South Africa and China is going to be enhanced, particularly in the 7th administration and in the era of the government of national unity. And we assured them. And their citing of ministers that I had in my delegation from other political parties was actually a real sort of confidence booster. They want confidence. They want to see that we have stability, we have confidence. They can have confidence in the future trajectory of the country. And some of those companies also not only invest in China, but they also want to be partners of Chinese companies when they come to South Africa. So we had the benefit of having the two types of companies in our engagement with the business. And they made suggestions, rather good suggestions on things like visas, on things like deepening and hastening the reforms that we have embarked upon. So it was a very good engagement, and similarly, as I said earlier, with the engagement with Chinese businesses. And for us, this was like a real first time as I travel to have an engagement in 3 versions. Firstly, to meet them all, Chinese and South Africans, and thereafter to meet Chinese separately, and thereafter to meet South African business people separately. So we've been very busy. We've not been sleeping on the job.
Thank you. My question is, what lessons do you think the development of China's new energy and energy industry can provide for South Africa's green transformation, and what are your expectations for deepening cooperation on renewable energy? Thank you.
Well, China has a lot of experience as well as technological capabilities that they can share with us, South Africa. And we were pretty straightforward in saying we want to learn. We want to see how they've reached this level of great development. So our presence here is to draw lessons, to draw from the history of their own experience and the journey that they have traversed. For instance, when it comes to restructuring and reforming our energy sector, our electricity sector. As we are reforming, we found that they have traversed this journey. They already have done exactly what we are seeking to do. So there are lessons for us to learn from China and how to do it. And there are also lessons for us more broadly when it comes to the management of the state-owned enterprises, which we are now busy with, reforming our state-owned enterprises. They have a lot to teach us. When it comes to green energy, they're already miles ahead, and we are learning from them. But we have many more endowments, like, if you like, advantages, in that our resources are given to being able to give the best of, you know, the new energy, the renewable energy, and the green energy. We've got hydrogen, and we are blessed with higher capacity or capability of radiation when it comes to solar. So the PV industry can grow exponentially in our country. So there's a lot we can learn, and we are learning from China. And that is why a number of their own companies now focusing on our energy sector, and we will now advance to a higher level of electric vehicles and hydrogen. So that relationship we're forged with China is a very, very powerful and mutually beneficial relationship. I want to stress that it's not a one-way relationship. It's mutually beneficial. And to demonstrate this, I mean, it was a joy for me to see this yesterday. South African companies are invested here, and they're making profits. And they've found a really good environment to invest in. And Chinese companies have invested in South Africa as well. So it's mutually beneficial, and we want to enhance that.
Mr. President, I'll take two last questions. Ebi Margaret and the lady over there. Those will be the last questions, and I'll take them at the same time, Mr. President. Ebi?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a very quick one for clarification's sake. In my opinion, the remarks you make reference to one of the new ministers in your current administration, who is Singalai. Not your ways, of course, mine, but I assume that minister must be the agriculture minister. I'd like you to tell me if I'm wrong to assume that way or I'm correct.
Okay, last question. Yes?
Thank you. Thank you, President. I'm a reporter from the Global Times. My question to you is that, in your eyes, how does China's approach to Africa differ from that of the West? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, those were the last two.
He wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
Allow him.
That is, after this year's general election, are there any changes in the trajectory or direction of the economic reform of South Africa, and also what kind of role could China play in the economic reform, especially the reform of South African SOEs?
Thank you.
Well, as I said, I came with a whole delegation of ministers, and we made it a point that the delegation must be representative of the government of national unity in some shape or form. And we were very fortunate to have ministers, some of whom were, coming to China for the very first time. And in the past, they may well have had their own illusions and concepts about China. And when they got here, they saw for themselves. Their minds were blown, and they said, "We didn't know that this country is as capable as this." And then I think that's when for many, the penny dropped, as they say in English. As the penny dropped, then you begin to, that's the word you used, open their eyes. And we were Minister of International Relations is the one who alerted me to the interview that one of the ministers had made on Bloomberg TV. I had not been aware of it. Not that he's a spy. He had become aware of it and even repeated it in the presence of that minister. So for us, this is good. This proves the correctness of having taken the decision that we did to stabilize the country and to take the country forward. It was quite testing, a difficult decision to take, but the people of South Africa had decided that this should be the new political architecture or governance architecture in our country, and we've embraced it, and we will continue to see some benefits of it as people in the various 9 political parties, 10 political parties will be sharing views and experiences and aspirations and all that. So it is a change process, a transformative process that, in my view, is going to behove well for South Africa and the people of South Africa. And we should be grateful that this is a new era and a new process that we are all involved in. And it will be to the advantage of all South Africans, I guess. There was a question on approach, but you asked it.
The question is, how do you think, how does China's approach to Africa differ from that?
Oh yes, indeed. No, indeed. Without comparing China with any other part of the world, as I said, we have found China to be very progressive in its relations with Africa, and mutually seeking to have a mutual beneficial outcome. Does not mean that others don't. Get me clear. I don't want to be comparing, but we are very appreciative of the Focac relationship we have as a continent, because we see that it fosters a mutually beneficial relationship. With regard to the role, say, of China in helping us in setting out lessons for us on state-owned enterprises, yes, there's a lot that we can learn from China. China's state-owned enterprises, many of them are well-run, and they are big, they are overarching, and a number of them are world players. It was a joy to listen to a number of Chinese business people who were telling us that their companies are in the Fortune 500 grouping of companies in the world. Now, that for us is a great boon for us as South Africans, that we can have in our economy companies that are as strong, as powerful, and as profitable as that. I mean, one of the state-owned enterprises recorded to be making something like 200 billion profit. Now, these are unheard of numbers as far as we are concerned. They have taken the trouble and the time to manage their state-owned enterprises in a good way, and we want to learn from that. There's a lot we can learn, so we will be focusing on the lessons that China has to give to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, that concludes our media briefing. Thank you, President. Thank you to the Minister.
Can I go home now?
Yes, Mr. President.